afternoon, Paul. Hi, welcome for joining me today. This is a podcast that Paul and I are actually thinking about doing. We're going to do it as a regular thing, maybe once a week, maybe every 2 weeks. And Paul is one of my smart buddies. We work for the same organization, and he recently wrote a blog post, which I loved it. I did loved it, but I knew because I know you so well, I loved it. I think the biggest challenge is like we needed a better way, Paul, to introduce that. So my name is Kathleen Wilson. I'm a digital program supportability program manager for Microsoft. I'm also very passionate about modern service management and really trying to help organizations understand technology adoption is more than just adopting the technology. It's the way you interact with it, the way you behave, and the way you use your technology to continuously deliver value to the organization. Hence, 6 years ago, I met Paul. And Paul and I, coming from Canada and Paul from the Netherlands, is we had very similar ideas on cloud adoption. And one of the things is we did a lot of work with private cloud. We did stuff with public cloud. It didn't matter if we lifted and shifted workloads in it. Organizations were struggling to be cloud savvy. So today we want to talk a little bit about this blog post that Paul did it on. It's akin to climate change and renewable energy and how organizations shift to cloud via leadership. So this is going to be a smaller podcast. We're going to talk about leadership today. So I'm going to let Paul introduce himself, start out with the topic, and we're going to share a little bit of the dialogue we had that was going over email with both of us and a few other friends at work. So good afternoon, Paul. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Kathleen, for joining in this discussion. Yes, I'm Paul Vijverliaat from the Netherlands, and my role is being a consultant. And as consultant, I'm a trusted advisor to IT managers, directors, CTOs in large enterprises, and help them adopt the cloud in a way that they really get the value out of this public cloud environment. And having these conversations in delivery, but also in sales and in pre-sales, I came across a lot of different views and ways of adopting public cloud. And like Kathleen said, it started me thinking about 2 years ago already. And I wanted to write some blog about it, but it's a hard topic. So I like metaphors a lot. So I wanted to push something in like a metaphor, not for having a debate about the metaphor, but for showing that this is not the only space where these kind of things happen. So the blog started off with seeing customers in the exact same segment, like for instance, banking or insurance or retail. But each of these customers have the exact same regulation to live up to, but they are going to adopt cloud in a completely different way, where one customer has a brilliant vision and starts, the leadership starts with completely embracing that public cloud in a very strategic way. The other customer, they are very reluctant and they're just barely making their feet wet. And I saw the similar behavior, for instance, between Germany and the Netherlands. So Germany, for instance, they chose to start with an energy transition only a few years ago. And they really, their leadership in Germany, they really started this not as a 1 or 2 year strategy. It's a longer term strategy. And it's now really paying off in Germany. In the Netherlands, however, we're a bit pragmatic and we're only moving if it really hurts. So why is it starting off in the Netherlands? Not because of our visionary leadership, just because we had some real nasty things going on in the north of our country related to gas exploration. So the similar thing happens in IT, I guess. Some leaders really need to have a lot of pain from the choices they made in the past before they will move. and others will move anyway because they are so passionate about what the public cloud can bring. And I
But
liked,
to add
yeah,
to though,
yeah,
Paul, because you've had customers that, we've had them, they had to move to cloud because, you know, massive security breach, or they were running out of room in their data center. They ran out of capacity, right? So it's like, I'm sorry to stop, but there was almost like a triggering moment that actually gets organizations to really think about moving to it, right? There's lots of experimentation. People do their dev test in the cloud. People spin up some virtual machines and some
hmm,
cute compute to play
sure,
with it. But there's that defining moment where leaders in an organization, they're going to make that decision. Hey, we got to move to renewable energy, or like a country, or in the case of where we work at, is we really need to start moving to cloud because we're
yeah.
not agile enough.
I agree, but I think I love the McKinsey article because actually they said by now it's no matter anymore about the compelling event to move public cloud. No, the public cloud in itself has so much to offer that it's no longer an option, it's a standard. You have to adopt some sort of public cloud because you can no longer neglect that environment.
Yeah,
So
but if we
I, yeah,
go back to 6 years ago, not everybody, Paul,
no,
was adopting
sure,
cloud. It was
sure,
still new, right? So it was still new,
absolutely,
but
yeah,
we had people experiment. It's the same thing as you said with Germany. It's like we've been talking about renewable energy for years, and climate change and everything else like that. But then there's a defining moment of an organization. That's where the leader, and this is really what tuned me into that article, is like the leader actually grabbed that moment, grasped that moment, and just defined a strategy or a plan of how to get there, right? So it's not just moving workloads or applications to the cloud, or deciding a few people are going to buy electric cars in Germany, and hey, we've solved the issue with renewable
issue, yeah,
energy, right?
yeah,
As I said, I really wanted to focus on that leadership strain that you had in this blog post, what it takes to, okay, first you make a decision, but then you need to build out a plan and a vision for the people in the organization, or the people in the country, to come along with you, right?
absolutely, yeah,
So
yeah.
let's
So I
let's
think,
discuss that
yeah,
track for a bit.
yeah. So at the end of the blog, I refer to our own transition on leadership level, on Satya's level, starting to tear down silos based on a vision he had, and that's now finally starting to pay off. Not I don't think not in all segments in our organization perhaps, but at least in a majority of them. Um, and I think so. Apart from the decisive moment and the vision, you also need a leader that's able to make decisions and get people along to that vision that he has. So make incremental steps towards the end goal, and that's really buying into yeah, long-term strategy, which is really hard. It's painful decisions to be made. So you need the courage to do that and start it off, but you also need backup from your board in this case to go down that route, and you have to show your numbers in the end as well. So I think that's similar to public cloud adoption. The real thing with public cloud adoption is to adopt the public cloud in a way that it pays off to your business. It's not a thing just to do because everybody else does it. We are there to help you do it in a way that it really pays off to the business, and we are obliged to do that, I would say, as
Yeah.
consultants.
But let's again, Paul, I want to make this more conversational and not long dialogue. So we
Yeah,
got to be really, really quick. So one of the things we're picking up is like, okay, you get a leader with a vision, right? So we have a vision. We got Satya. Then you need to surround yourself with a leadership team who also shares the same vision as you. And you can do that either with carrots or sticks. So, for example, one of the things is, if you're an organization and you're going to, define or start using cloud services, your C-level suite and your executive level suite will have to make it written in their metrics or their commitments that they're going to adopt cloud technology. So one of the things that was really great when I took the early cloud workshops at work was that we made a commitment at Microsoft that we were going to put 97% of our compute into the cloud. That is a measurable target, right? And as a leader, you know, you can have your scorecard, red, yellow, green, showing up every single month is whether or not these people are achieving that 97%, right? So,
Absolutely.
right? So I think, you know, akin to climate change too, you made that comment about you need to maybe punish organizations or punish companies that choose not to use renewable energy sources in their manufacturing. So why don't we kind of delve in? It's how do we help other people understand what it takes? It doesn't just take like, hey, we're going to the cloud. Let's talk about what we would need to do to define that plan from a leadership level. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, so what we recommend customers is not to do a big bang transformation. So our approach is to start off a ripple effect. So prove value fast, and then extend to a broader scope in the organization. And finally, when it's reached a critical mass, then you really need to transform your organization. But our experience so far is that that takes about, well, 2 years, something like that. Then it really becomes so massive and also pays off in a massive way that you can really start transforming the larger part of your organization. But really starting small with things that matter to the business and pay off quickly, and then reiterate. It's a strategy that really helps. The hard thing about that is that some customers are in a situation where they really have to move everything at once to the public cloud, and then it's I
It's
come across
messy.
this. Yeah, it's messy. I come across
We've done a
these.
few of those. I've seen the
Yeah,
outcome. It's just basically you pick it all up, you throw it in there. It's like, you know, you're being thrown out of your apartment. You pack everything in boxes, like you're not putting the kitchen stuff together, and you haven't, like, you're just throwing everything in boxes, and you move it to your new place, and then you have to kind of sort through and pick out
yeah, but I
your
think
garbage.
you have to do both. Eh? If you only do one play, it will not bring you the restructuring you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So getting your stuff together on one hand is fine. Eh? Perhaps you have to move because, for whatever reason. But also start this new way of adopting the cloud and not just lifting and shifting, but really restructuring your siloed organization and really put in relentless automation, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
brings you the
that's a
longer
mind
term.
shift, right? Like, it's like before we did everything manually in our data centers, and we had everything. So, and we don't want to go too deep into this because that we can definitely talk about that, but it's like, you know, it's like these are creating new habits, right? Or new modes to operate or new ways of thinking. So,
Absolutely. And
starting small, thinking big, but then not even just thinking that cloud adoption is the moving to the cloud. It's like, how am I going to maintain, manage, and operate it and improve it? And I think that's a lot of some people's like, oh, when I'm in the cloud, I'm good, right? I use Office 365 or cloud organization, right? So I think some of the things that you've been working with on customers specifically about how to operate the cloud, I think was the biggest challenge, right? It's
sure.
not necessarily, okay, we're going to build a new app in the cloud. It's like, okay, let's talk about how we do application management and release management and, uh, you know, DevOps and agile planning, or who does what in an organization.
Sure. Yeah. And I think to that point, it's if you are going to restructure your way of working, it then really becomes painful, because then you're touching people's day-to-day work, and people, stakeholders need to step over their own shadow, and I stretch myself to step over my own shadow by every day thinking about, okay, what can I give to somebody else to do what I do today instead? So instead of me doing it, can I enable someone else to do it? And I can focus on the new things I want to really embrace. And if you do that every day, then you get incremental improvements, because people start doing that and replicating that behavior. But holding to what you have and just nurturing that in the longer end won't bring you what you think you're looking for. I've seen that numerous times with colleagues of mine that did that and finally had no job. And so in these days, I think, and especially in adopting public clouds, change as a normal is essential. Seeing change as something that's, I would say, a capability of yourself is the real thing. What it is about in public cloud, because innovation is going so fast that you have to be able to adapt constantly. And that's what we see with customers is the biggest challenge and the biggest difference also to the traditional IT environment, where changes happened every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and now it happens every 2 months, something like, or
Oh,
even
I think it's
faster.
less than that. Like there's a lot of things that have changed on me in the last month at work. So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
get that. But I think, and I think, I'm going to wrap it up on that point, Paul, because I really, really like that idea is that I think, we all chose a career in information technology, right? And it's always about, and I know in my career, it was always thinking about being what's next, or, sharing what I know. And this is the whole goal of us doing these podcasts together, is sharing these goals and tips and tricks with other people. And that's a cultural shift, right? And a lot of organizations struggle with their IT departments because I don't know why they went and took computer science at school if they didn't think things were going to change, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like, you really need to stretch yourself as somebody who is an ambassador of technology. Is like you constantly have to grow. It's like, it's akin to saying, I want to be a doctor, but I don't like blood. Like it's innate with the job. Like you're in information technology and it's about changing. I think the problem is right now is that we bring in technology and we have leaders, but something's missing between these 2 points, right? It's like, okay, here's the new technology. We need to, get people to think outside their box and be slightly uncomfortable. So
Yep.
one of my growth things is if I don't feel uncomfortable almost every single day, or if I'm not learning something new, and I feel uncomfortable a lot, I work with people smart like you, Paul. It's scary. So I think we should break this right now, but I really want to talk about that blog post, because that blog post was really good because it talks about, top-down leadership, about moving transformational change. So we're going to put that information below. You can follow Paul on LinkedIn, right? He's on LinkedIn as well as I'm on LinkedIn. And let's start a dialogue, guys. Let's not make this just
Absolutely.
static,
Feel
right?
free.
Yeah, that's
You're
it.
welcome.
Hey, Paul, thanks again. I can't wait to build on this next topic because it's going
Thank
to
you,
be a
Kathleen.
lot of fun.
Likewise. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you in the next blog.
See you in the next one.
Bye
Bye.
bye.